Welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we are going to get you caught up with everything that's going on. It has been a wild couple of days. Look, we knew at the end of the regular season, a few teams had already moved off from their head coach in the NFL. But the firings continued over the course of the last 36 hours with 4 more openings happening. We'll keep our eyes peeled throughout the course of the show. But Caroline, figured we take a look at the landscape of the NFL and all of these different coaching opportunities and figure out too soon, too late, just right. So let's take a look at some of these coaches that are no longer with their team and figure out, did the team make the move too soon, too late, or at just the right time? Let's start with the name that is just absolutely already seems seemingly a front runner everywhere. The Browns and Kevin Stefanski. To you, was this too soon? Was this too late? Or was it just right for the Browns to move on?
It's no surprise to me that Kevin Stefanski's name is the hot one on the coaching carousel. So for that, I say too soon in Cleveland. Because with what he was given at the quarterback position, Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco and 2 rookies in Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, Kevin Stefanski was doomed to fail. What did ownership and the Haslams and the powers that be in Cleveland expect from Kevin Stefanski this year with what he was given? So I'll say too soon on Kevin Stefanski, and dare I add too little as well. What would warrant a firing for the head coach? But Andrew Berry, the general manager in Cleveland, sticks around. Because when I take a step back and I look at the biggest issues in Cleveland, sure, when you win 8 games in 2 years, obviously everyone is to blame there. Nobody is blameless when you are as bad, as wretched, as horrific as the Cleveland Browns organization has been over the last several years. But when I take a step back and I look at the number one issue in Cleveland, it's not coaching. It's talent. It's the quarterback situation. It's not Kevin Stefanski that guaranteed Deshaun Watson all of that money. It's not Kevin Stefanski that signed up for this quarterback situation. It's not Kevin Stefanski that had Jerry Jeudy as their number one target on this wide receiving core. No, that all falls at the hands of Andrew Berry, the general manager. So I say too soon on Kevin Stefanski. But if the Browns wanted to move on from Kevin Stefanski, fine. Too little if it's only Stefanski. It should have been Andrew Berry as well.
Well, and this is where, look, a couple of things that you just said there that I think stand out. Number one, Andrew Berry keeps this job. In large part, people will point to the draft class and how much impact they're getting already from last year's draft class, which I agree with completely. My question is, who do you think is developing those players and putting them in a spot to succeed? The coaching staff. So to me, if we're going to look at it and say, well, these rookies really came along during their rookie year, okay, well, you're disrupting that entire development process now by bringing a different cook into the kitchen. Maybe that cook will get even more. Maybe that cook will get even less. A lot of this comes back to, frankly, the opinions on the other person in this picture right here. It's all about Shedeur, right? Like, there are so many people that have loudly yelled about Shedeur and what they think Kevin Stefanski didn't do with Shedeur Sanders, that it has sort of crafted the narrative one way or the other. I would argue that, frankly, I'm not sure there's a single coach in the NFL that would have had drastic success with this roster the way it's currently built, which is part of why people are already regarding Kevin Stefanski as a hot commodity in coaching circles, right? Like, if you're talking about the job that he's done, my question is, what job do you think should have been done? What specifically did Stefanski? This is where people come back, and I've already railed on the 2-point conversions and some of these play calls that people don't like. Even if you don't like the play call, I don't like how recklessly Dan Campbell goes for it on 4th down. Oh, well, does that mean you're going to fire him? So I think sometimes you have to look at the entire picture here. When I look at the entire picture, 2-time coach of the year, fine. Even if you think that's inflated, I don't believe he's ever had a quarterback position sort of situation that would allow most coaches to truly thrive, especially in the AFC, which is so quarterback dependent. The fact is, if you don't have a Mahomes, you don't have a Josh Allen, you don't have a Justin Herbert, if we want to include him, a Trevor Lawrence, like, you can go up and down the list. If you don't have a quarterback in the AFC, you don't have a shot. The Browns haven't had a quarterback for a very long time, and they're still paying a king's ransom for Deshaun Watson. So, look no further than the fact that right now, the most appealing coach to many people on the market is Kevin Stefanski, and the least appealing job to many people on the market is the Cleveland Browns. They still don't have a clear path to a quarterback. They still don't have an answer to it. I believe next year Deshaun and Shador are going to be competing to be the starting quarterback. That is not a recipe for sudden playoff success. So I think this was done too soon. I also think Kevin Stefanski is going to land much better on his feet than the Cleveland Browns are from all of this. So that's one. How about one near and dear to my heart? Obviously, the Raiders and Pete Carroll. What do you think? Too soon? Too late? Just right?
And I think this is fitting that we are bringing up Pete Carroll after Kevin Stefanski, because there are just some organizations in the NFL that I can't always blame the coach. Sometimes I just have to blame the organization. And in this instance, why were the Raiders so dreadful? I don't think it was because of Pete Carroll, who's going to eventually be in the pro and college football Hall of Fames. I think it's because of the Raiders. But with all of that being said, look, Pete Carroll is old. This thing went off the rails. It felt kind of doomed from the start. You bring in a 35-year-old Geno Smith and a very old Pete Carroll to be the savior of this franchise. That doesn't work. But I think that this was just right. I think the Raiders did the right thing in waiting until the end of the season to fire Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is a living legend. Pete Carroll is so well respected in football spaces, not just in pro football spaces. Pete Carroll is such a well respected person in general in this sport that it would feel just a little tacky to move on from Pete Carroll in the middle of the season. Did it go off the rails? 1000%. Did we all see the writing on the walls? Of course we did. But I thought that it was the classy thing to do to wait until after the season, because that's what you sign up for when you bring in a guy like Pete Carroll, who's as well respected as Pete Carroll is. So I think, I don't say this often, Fitzy, I think the Raiders did the right thing.
You've almost talked me into it, too, because it helped them lose a bunch of games down the stretch that I'm not sure they always would have lost. Look, I will say this. My pinned tweet, I'm looking at it here, is from this show on October 21st, 2025. And the headline is, my thoughts on the future of Pete Carroll and the Raiders and why the timelines don't match. So, look, all the way back to October, I've been telling you Pete Carroll is going to get fired on this show. This is pretty clear to see because, frankly, he is too old to lead a rebuild. He's not somebody that's going to be with you for the next 5 or 6 years. And as much as I agree with you, organizational dysfunction is the main reason this team sucks. Also, Pete Carroll chose to hire his kids to be coaches on the staff. When your kid is the offensive line coach and your offensive line is, according to people smarter than me, one quote I got, the worst I've ever seen on a professional football team, you're going to get fired. So I think in some ways this was too late because they've got young talent they do want to try and develop, but I'll hear you out on just right as long as Pete Carroll doesn't come back next season, which we know is not happening. How about the Falcons and Raheem Morris? Okay, is this too soon, too late, or just right for you with the Falcons?
I think that this is just right. And I think that the writing was on the wall. You know, if Raheem Morris was fired first thing Monday morning, I think we all could have understood or should have understood that the results against the Saints in week 18 didn't matter. And I think that's a smart move by owner Arthur Blank, that you can't let one result or a couple of results at the end of the season sway your decision one way or another. If Raheem Morris wasn't good enough, then he wasn't good enough, despite what maybe some late season records may have shown you. Because sure, the Falcons went on a 4-game win streak to end the season to get them to 8-9. So the Falcons had so much talent on this roster. You're talking about Drake London, Bijan Robinson, who we had Stephen Godfrey on the show yesterday. He talked about Bijan Robinson as being the best player in the NFL. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do see his thought process there. I do think Bijan Robinson is one of the best players in the NFL. And you have James Pierce on the defensive line, a really young and encouraging player with 10.5 sacks. I know the quarterback situation is a big question mark, and that's probably a big reason why Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris are no longer in Atlanta. But outside of the quarterback position, there's so much talent on this roster in a wide open division. So sure, the Falcons found some, late season surges, but overall, this season was a disappointment in Atlanta. So I think that the Falcons made the right move at the right time.
You are talking me into it. This one feels a little too soon. It feels a little too soon to me, but I do think, it's important to note here, everything that has happened in Atlanta, in my opinion, is happening because of the quarterback draft. And it's funny how we've allowed history to really take us back and forth on this. We have swung a pendulum back and forth on this because the night that the draft happened, I was on air with Yahoo Sports. We were doing a draft show, and C-Rob, Charles Robinson's, the look on his face as he found out that Penix was the draft pick long before anybody else knew. He actually almost got in trouble for tipping the pick. And his face just went blank. And he looked at me and said, "You're never going to believe it." I think we need to go back to that moment now and look at it, because what you have is $100 million Kirk Cousins that has turned out to be a sub 500 quarterback that needed time to get better from his injury and still may never be who he was. That's plan B. Your plan A is a quarterback in Michael Penix Jr. that I just looked it up, is going to be 26 years old when this season starts. 26. And he's managed so far through his NFL career to play 14 games. Guy can't stay on the field and can't stay healthy. So now all of a sudden, you've got this shocking draft pick. And when it started to work last year, when we saw Penix come in and everybody started to say, "Oh my God, look at this. This is brilliant. This is why you do this. You protected yourself." Well, then all of a sudden you wake up a year later and you think, well, did we just waste $100 million and a draft pick? You get in a lot of trouble spending rich people's money. And with Arthur Blank, they went out and they spent $100 million of his dollars on Kirk Cousins and a 9th overall pick or whatever it was off the top of my head on Michael Penix Jr., a top 10 pick on Michael Penix Jr. You combine those two things, man, you fail that hard at the quarterback position, everybody's getting fired. So I feel like maybe coach deserved a little bit more time, but also there's a just right element to this because the quarterback position went so awry. How about this one? The Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon. Where are you on the Cardinals and Jonathan Gannon? Too late? Just right? Too soon? Where are we?
I think it's too late. He was 15-36 in Arizona. That team is dreadful. That team has been dreadful. He's a defensive guy, and the defense is not very inspiring. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that once upon a time, we did call him Maserati Marv, because he hasn't really looked like a Maserati. He's looked like a Mazda. No disrespect to Mazda. But overall, this Cardinals team, what do you have to be excited about, really, with this Cardinals team? So I think Jonathan Gannon, it feels very uninspiring to me at this point. And Cardinals owner Michael Bidwill, when he had his press conference yesterday, he said, "Look, we were going in the wrong direction. That's ultimately why we decided to make a coaching change." I mean, yeah, you think it has been going in the wrong direction. So you can say just right. I will say I think it's just a wee bit too late in Arizona. They have an uphill climb ahead of them.
Yeah, I think it was just right to give him the chance to turn it around. Also, it's just not easy. Again, there's one thread with every one of these teams we talked about: the Browns, the Raiders, the Falcons, the Cardinals. The thread is none of them really have a quarterback situation we feel comfortable with. And Kyler Murray, I will include in that. So the Cardinals certainly seem trapped here. The getting out of the Kyler Murray deal is going to take a little bit of time, or a trade partner that's willing to pay a lot for a quarterback that hasn't proven to be worth it. You invest in that position, it doesn't work out. You're right, the defense not good enough. Just all the way across the board, this thing's been a bit of a failure. A little bit of coaching news we did get yesterday. Philip Rivers told reporters yesterday afternoon that he thinks, this is the quote, "as humbly as I can say it, that I can coach at this level." Are you buying Philip Rivers as a head coach in 2026 in the NFL?
No, I am not. I will say the same thing about this situation, about Philip Rivers eventually being a coach in 2026, that I said about Matt Ryan taking over front office leadership duties in Atlanta. Just because you played the position does not mean that you can do the job. It doesn't mean you can't do the job, of course not. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you can coach at a high level, or that you can be a front office member and evaluate at a high level. Just look at what life has looked like in 1 year with Tom Brady doing evaluation for the Raiders. So I'm not saying that Philip Rivers can't. I'm just saying going from a leap of being a quarterback in the league to then turning around and being a head coach in the league the next year feels like a really big jump. Going from being a high school coach in Alabama to now being a head coach in the National Football League. Well, life's a little bit different there. So I think that Philip Rivers, I could totally 100% eventually see him being a coach in this league, but that leap can't happen from quarterback to coach in the span of just a few months.
Well, I mean, how often do we talk about how different the job is for offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator to head coach? It's such a wildly different position. There's a learning curve to all of it. I could see Philip Rivers, if he wants to be a coach, going through the trajectory of becoming a coach, become some sort of a a positional coach or an offensive coordinator and then work your way to head coach. I will remind everybody what the conversations were when Jeff Saturday, a dear friend of mine, was named the interim head coach of the Colts. And yes, Jeff Saturday texted me right after he beat my beloved Raiders as the interim head coach of the Colts. I get that. But the conversation when everything went downhill and he was just an interim coach to come in and fill the gap, the conversation was, how could the Colts put somebody so unqualified on the sidelines as Jeff Saturday? And that was probably a fair conversation because he's never been an NFL head coach. He was just a sort of a stopgap solution to this. How's this any different? We have no idea. Just because Phillip Rivers has been a successful quarterback, just like you said, doesn't mean that Tom Brady makes a successful owner or president or whatever the hell he is with the Raiders simply because he was a legendary quarterback. Just like Michael Jordan didn't make a great NBA team owner. Like we've got example after example of front office people that were players not being great front office people. So sure, Phillip, if you believe you can coach, man, you've made more money than God. Go out there and coach. Work your way up and you will have a meteoric rise. I would just say to any team, hiring somebody that's never been a head coach to be a first-time head coach simply because they're a legendary quarterback in the sport doesn't make any sense to me. We're just getting rolling on Yahoo Sports Daily. We got plenty to get to. Coming up, we're about to hit the wild college football playoff matchup, but Ole Miss might already be winning. We'll tell you about it next. Trinidad Chambliss on ESPN on the decision to sign a new deal with Ole Miss pending a 6-year waiver. I made the decision last night, talked to my agent and family, and it's the best situation for me. I owe it all to Ole Miss. Let's remember, Caroline, just a few months ago, most people didn't even know who the hell Trinidad Chambliss is. We're being honest here. If we go back to the summer, nobody would have said, oh, my God, the guy you got to keep is Trinidad Chambliss. And now all of a sudden, through the course of the way he's played in the regular season after winning this job, through what we've seen in the college football playoff, hell, you even hear people that are breaking down the draft starting to say, nope, he's going to rise up draft boards if he's able to get this extra year of eligibility, and we'll see how that plays out. This is a big, big moment for Ole Miss, keeping a quarterback that many people had already speculated was going to head to LSU if he could keep playing. So this is a big deal for Ole Miss and for Chambliss.
Let's not forget, too, Trinidad Chambliss didn't even come into the season as the starting quarterback. The only reason why he was the starter is because their original starter, Austin Simmons, got hurt, and Trinidad Chambliss played at such a high level, there was no way that they could have made that quarterback switch. So I hope that Trinidad Chambliss does get this waiver approved and he does get a 6th year of eligibility, because these kinds of stories are what makes sports and college football so great. The fact that a guy from Ferris State that nobody had ever even heard of, who was a backup coming into Ole Miss, now has his team in the college football playoff semifinal. It's the same kind of story that we saw from Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt, Stetson Bennett at Georgia, a JUCO kid that went and won back-to-back national championships at his dream school when he was a kid. Like, these are the warm fuzzies, the happy American dream Cinderella type of stories that we all fall in love with. So more of those stories and more opportunities for great players like Trinidad Chambliss, I think, is a positive thing. My one caveat to that though is, one part of Trinidad Chambliss's waiver that he applied for is he was basically applying for antitrust laws. He was making, and his legal team was making the case to the NCAA that with this offer that Ole Miss gave him, he would be missing out majorly financially if he was not given this extra year of eligibility. Well, that's not how eligibility works. Like, that's not how the NCAA works. I'm sure that there are so many players across college sports that would love to come back for an extra year of eligibility in order to capitalize on NIL. But eligibility is eligibility. That, you can't stay in college for 100 years. So if Trinidad Chambliss gets this waiver because of the D2 rule, because he didn't play those 2 years at Ferris State, if he wants to apply for the waiver based on eligibility alone, fine. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I do have a problem, though, if it's based on financial gain, because that sets a scary precedent.
That does set a scary. You are right. That sets a scary precedent. As I say to you all the time, the next time that a player sues for eligibility and loses will be the first time in court. Court every single time has looked at the NCAA and said, nope, you can't stop it. So I'm genuinely curious to see if the NCAA even really puts up a fight. Like, okay, so they put up a fight, they get challenged in court, they lose in 6 months after they pay more attorneys and more court fees. I hear you, though, and I do think that there's, that's a slippery slope. That being said, this is, to me, one of the most beautiful things about the transfer portal. To your point, somebody that most people had never heard of now gets the chance to continue his trajectory, maybe to the NFL. But even if he has no shot at the NFL, this year, the going rate for the top-end quarterbacks, Trinidad Chambliss certainly would be one of those in the transfer portal, has been a contract between $4 and $5 million. So look, 10 years ago in college football, if Trinidad Chambliss doesn't get drafted by the NFL, he's not going to make anything. He's going to go through this whole process, and his best hope is that he can become a coach somewhere and maybe make a little bit of money afterwards, signing autographs as a former Ole Miss player. Now he has a chance for generational wealth while Ole Miss is going through this wild season. This is a win-win to me. Like, the opportunity, I think sometimes we get so obsessed about the jump from college to the NFL and the money these kids will eventually make that we forget there's a bunch of kids that play college football that may never make a substantial living or any living at all in the NFL. Look no further than Dillon Gabriel, who already seems to have lost his opportunity with Cleveland. Well, if Dillon Gabriel made more in college than he did in the NFL, good on him. If Chambliss never makes it to the NFL, but all he gets is the opportunity to come back next year and make $5 million playing quarterback, my God, who am I to stop that from happening? So I love every ounce of this. I am curious, though, to see what the precedent looks like. Ole Miss, obviously, taking everybody down. They got a huge matchup against Miami. Full transparency, every week I say, Miami's going to lose, and every week Miami wins. What the hell do I know about Miami? But, Caroline, this Ole Miss team certainly, with the way Chambliss runs around, they're going to challenge Miami's defensive line in ways that Miami hasn't necessarily been challenged so far in this playoff.
Yeah, but Miami's defensive front, I think one thing that I've learned about them is that their defensive front is way better than I ever gave them credit for. You look at Ohio State. What's Ohio State known for? Physicality, being tough at the lines of scrimmage. Miami bullied them up on the defensive line for a full 60 minutes. I mean, you look at Ohio State, they weren't able to get anything done in the run game. Their quarterback was running around, running for his life the entirety of that game. So I think and we're talking about Ohio State here, the reigning national champions. Ohio State, the team that's bigger and faster and more physical than everybody, not Miami. You're also looking at Miami, who has one of the best defensive linemen in the country, if not the best defensive lineman in the country, in Ruben Bain. So I think that's going to be a massive challenge for Ole Miss is getting stuff done in the run game. And look, Trinidad Chambliss can extend plays. We saw that against Georgia, running around, going back 20 yards, and then finding a receiver 40 yards deep for a first down in crunch time. I mean, Trinidad Chambliss against Georgia completed 13 consecutive passes, and several of those were on the move and off platform. It was so impressive. So if anyone can, extend plays or make plays against this Miami defensive front, looks like Trinidad Chambliss is very appropriately situated to do that. But I think overall, the level of physicality that we've seen from these Miami lines of scrimmage in the playoffs give me enough confidence to say I do think that Miami is going to win this game, because I don't think that Ole Miss's defense is good enough to take away how Miami has won games, and that's the run game. Ole Miss's defensive line, Ole Miss's run game is not a strong spot on that team. Miami has won games because they've been able to run the football, and Carson Beck hasn't had to throw them to victory. And I think that continues against an Ole Miss defense that is, I would say fourth best in the playoffs right now.
I don't disagree with anything you just said, but I'm also looking at an Ole Miss team that just managed to handle Georgia's defense too, right? So, man, I don't know. Like this playoff so far has been such a sort of a thought process breaker to me, because Georgia was supposed to be the better team with the more experienced coach. Ole Miss is supposed to have a hard time with that defensive front, I thought. Ole Miss was supposed to have a hard time really sustaining drives, I thought. And Ole Miss was supposed to have a distracted team because their coaches are spending half of their time at LSU and half of their time at Ole Miss. For anybody that hasn't seen, the private jet bill must be through the roof, because some of these Lane Kiffin coaches that have moved on are coming back and they're coaching these games and they're prepping their team. And, you never know what coach is going to be with you what day. Like, the number of reasons I could stack together that Ole Miss should lose is staggering. But I'd say the same about Miami. Every single week in this playoff so far, I've said, nah, this team's too complete for Miami. I think this is the least threatening of the Miami opponents so far. So I like that for Miami. But also, this Ole Miss team just handled Georgia. I genuinely don't know what to make of it. If I have to pick somebody in this game, which we do because that's our job, I will pick Miami. But I'll tell you that there is not, like, I wouldn't put $1 on. I wouldn't put a Costco hot dog Coke combo on this thing, because I'm so insecure about how it will actually go. These two teams have absolutely changed our entire train of thought through this playoff matchup. So this one, who's your official pick, Caroline?
I'm taking Miami. Hot dog soda combo, famously $1.50 at Costco. So, adding a little extra to the kitty. But you're right. These two are narrative busters. These two are the improbable Cinderellas that have had to go through hell in a handbasket in order to get here. So I don't want to count either of these two teams out, but you mentioned the coaching staff at Ole Miss. I think at some point that has to rear its ugly head. I think at some point having coaches that are, half foot in Oxford, half foot in Baton Rouge, not having your head coach on the sidelines, I do feel like at some point, if it didn't show up against Georgia, and it didn't, Pete Golding out-coached Kirby Smart. I've never said that before in my life, but he did. But I do think at some point, all of the off-the-field distractions have to come to fruition when you are playing in the biggest games that this sport has to offer.
I can only guarantee you one thing. The only thing I'm comfortable betting on is that the winner of this game will be a heavy underdog to the winner of the other game, and that also won't matter. This college football playoff is wild. We do have some breaking news in college football to get you caught up. Quarterback Byron Brown is following Alex Golish to Auburn. Caroline, this is, again, when we talk about the transfer portal, you're talking about somebody that is following his coach as his coach goes from Team A to Team B. This is part of, the dirty little underworld of college football, too. Like, when you sit there and interview for jobs, there are certain guys you're going to get to take with you. So Byron Brown goes with a coach he knows to immediately get into an offense he knows. This is an important get for Alex Golish to begin his Auburn time.
This is a huge get for Alex Golish. And I think we also should have seen the writing on the wall. Whenever Alex Golish decided to make that jump from South Florida to Auburn, we saw a drove of South Florida players entering the transfer portal. And Byron Brown makes the 6th starter at South Florida, now transferring to Auburn. And look, Alex Golish is an offensive mastermind. He's an offensive genius. He was largely the architect of that 2022 Tennessee offense with Hendon Hooker and Cedric Tillman and Jalen Hyatt that put up like 170,000 points per game. So Alex Golish is an offensive-minded guy. And now he gets his guy as he tries to bring Auburn back at least to out of mediocrity and into relevancy, back to relevancy in the SEC. And what Byron Brown brings is a threat on the ground. I mean, he was South Florida's leading rusher. He had over 1,000 yards rushing as a quarterback. And also, he has a heck of an arm, over 3,000 yards, completed 67% of his passes this past year. So yes, the defenses that he'll be facing in the SEC get better. Yes, the level of competition is ratcheted up. But what Alex Golich gets and what Byron Brown gets is continuity and coaching and system.
And that's, so much of what we talk about with the Curt Cignetti model isn't just taking the Indiana job for Cignetti. It's bringing key pieces with him that could implement his offense, his culture, all of those other things. We see this time and time again. This is the new model in college football. All eyes will be on Auburn to see how they can turn that around quickly. Not the only piece of breaking news. We also have breaking NFL news coming to us right now. We've got a change in the NFL. Matt Eberflus has been fired as the defensive coordinator in Dallas. So Jerry has decided who the scapegoat is for not making the playoffs this year. They will now be going on their fourth different defensive coordinator in 4 seasons. It doesn't matter who the head coach is. The one consistent we know is that the defense coordinator is going to be gone every single year for Dallas.
And I don't even really view this as a scapegoat, Fitzy. I view this as the right move that Jerry Jones and all of the leadership in Dallas needed to make. Because what was the glaring issue for the Dallas Cowboys? Didn't take an expert to see it. When you have an MVP caliber quarterback, when you have one of the best offenses in the National Football League, and you're bottom 3 in total defense in the NFL, when you are statistically at the bottom of the league in every single defensive category, when that defense costs the Cowboys so many games on their schedule and likely a trip to the postseason, yeah, somebody's got to have to pay for that. So I think this was the right move. I felt like this was the obvious move, another move that I don't think should have been an overwhelming surprise to anybody, because that Cowboys defense was a liability, and it went beyond just you don't have Micah Parsons anymore. There were some serious flaws defensively that went beyond just Jimmys and Joes and X's and O's.
Now, I think to a certain extent, yes, but also on August 28th, the best player on this team was traded. If you're Eberflus, you're like, all right, I got this defense. I got Micah. Like, this is what you're thinking in August. I got Micah. Diggs is going to be healthy. Sure, this is going to work out. Diggs is going to be fine. All of a sudden, Diggs not healthy. Micah traded. The whole defense gets rewired and reworked. Just look at the difference we've even seen in the Packers defense with and without Micah Parsons on the field at times. So it felt like, yes, to your point, the defense was the wild underperforming aspect of this. But when the coaches change constantly on the defensive side of the ball, and when we see, frankly, pieces taken away from coaches, like, it's just an unfortunate byproduct of all of this. The Cowboys missed the playoffs. You knew change was coming. That change comes in the form of Eberflus getting fired. We'll keep you updated on the breaking news. But coming up next, we might be on the heels of getting some breaking news, on the verge of getting some breaking news in the NBA. Trae Young on the move? We'll tell you about it next. Mark Stein tweeted out the Wizards have emerged as a legitimate potential trade destination for Atlanta's Trae Young. They've learned in a deal construction centered around CJ McCollum's expiring contract. More to come as we're only about a month away right now from the NBA trade deadline. Trae Young, certainly one of the young players that took this league over the minute he walked into Atlanta, has had so many signature moments in his career. We'll never forget him shushing the Garden crowd. But Caroline, it doesn't matter for the Hawks at this point. They're not winning any damn games. So obviously, as we look at this trade deadline opportunity, well, the Hawks are trying to figure out how to build their team. Is this sort of at this point, when you hear that the Wizards are an emerging trade partner here, do you like this? Do you not like this? Where are you on?
It makes sense from the Hawks' perspective. When the Hawks didn't offer Trae Young an extension this past summer, I think we kind of saw the writing on the wall. We probably thought that it was inevitable that Trae Young's time in Atlanta was going to come to a close. So it does make sense. And the fact that Atlanta wants to move forward, they want to build around their young core in Jalen Johnson. No longer are they building around the core of Trae Young. So that makes sense for Atlanta. Now, the Wizards, I love that for the Wizards, because what in the world have Wizards fans had to be excited about over the last decade? Like, what has been exciting about that organization? What has been inspiring about that franchise? What has anyone who is a Wizards fan woken up on any given day and saying, you know what, I am so proud to be a Wizards fan because of this? So that makes sense for the Wizards. And what you get in Trae Young is some offensive fireworks, at least some excitement, a superstar in the league coming into Washington and wearing your uniform. But for Trae Young, I wonder what he wants. Because all reports make it sound, at least, and I know that's an agent's job, is to make things sound like everything is all sunshine and rainbows, but at least it sounds that things are amicable, that the Hawks are looking at it and saying, look, we want to make sure that you are taken care of and you get what you want, Trae Young, which I think is the right way to approach this. When a superstar has done so much for your organization, it's exactly what Trae Young has done for the Hawks. So do you think Trae Young would say, yeah, that's what I really want, is to go to the Washington Wizards, a team that is just totally in the depths of the NBA? Is that what Trae Young wants? If I'm Trae Young, I'm looking around at a team that could upgrade offensively. I'm looking at a team that could be in a position to win games right now. Maybe they're just one, offensive piece away from doing it. The Wizards are a Trae Young and then some away from even being exciting or relevant.
The problem here, all right, there's an old SNL.
He does look nice in that uniform, though.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. It's fine. There's an old SNL skit called Debbie Downer, right? And every time everybody said anything, Debbie Downer was in the corner and just made the Downer statement, and the horn went wah, wah, wah. I'm Debbie Downer to every trade, and I know that I'm Debbie Downer to every trade. I just was asked everybody, what the hell's the point? Like, I hear you. It gives the Wizards fans something to look forward to. Well, part of the reason that he's going to be traded by the Hawks is because when he's on the floor with the Hawks, they suck. So what is this going to fix? In fact, this year with Trae Young, they're 2-8. Without Trae Young, they're 15-13. So Atlanta, who's not particularly good, is demonstrably better without Trae Young on the court. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of us, but it's just the truth of the way it's playing out. So if you're the Wizards, congratulations. Your team sucks. And now you can acquire a player that, yes, while a superstar, is so bad for another team on the court with the results that they're willing to give him up. Not only are they willing to give him up, according to multiple reports, they might even be willing to throw in high draft picks as an additional incentive. Like, hey, please, we'll take CJ McCollum's expiring contract while you guys take Trae. We'll even give you draft picks. I'm Debbie Down. This trade it sucks. All right, it's not going to make the Hawks any better. It's not going to make the Wizards any better. Guess what? Your teams are not going to get better this year. So what are you doing? Like, what? If you're Atlanta, getting rid of Trae Young, is that really going to make everything suddenly sunshine and roses? Or are you still going to be in the midst of a rebuild trying to figure out what your roster really should look like? And if that's the case, all right, congratulations. You get CJ McCollum. Huzzah. I'm sure the city of Atlanta will be doing cartwheels for that and what it means for your non-competitive team. Or you could take the Wizards side of it and say, guess what? You finally get your superstar. There you got Trae Young. You might sell some jerseys. Great. You might sell some jerseys. You're certainly not getting a player that single-handedly could will a franchise to victory, because if he could do that, he'd be doing that in Atlanta. This all just sucks to me.
But wasn't he doing that?
I mean, can't anymore. He did. He's only 27. You would think, yeah,
He's
he did
27. He's averaging 19 points a game. CJ McCollum is the Wizards' leading scorer, and he's averaging 18. Look at the Wizards roster. They got a bunch of Scarbini nobodies. Caroline Fenton is on the Wizards box score at this point. Jason Fitz is on the Wizards box score at this point because they don't have anyone else. I don't think Trae Young woke up one day and all of a sudden was a crap bum player who couldn't play basketball. I just think the Hawks evolved around Trae Young, and Trae Young just no longer fits that system. Trae Young is just no longer the focal point of that organization. The Wizards stink. So to say, what's the point? Well, what's the point? You get a really good player who has had experience carrying a franchise before. Is he still that same player? Maybe not. But he's a hell of a lot better than anybody else the Wizards have on that roster. So a rebuild has to start somewhere. Getting better, the path to getting better has to start somewhere. And if you're the Hawks, getting something in return for Trae Young is better than getting nothing. His contract is up next year. So if you have a trade partner that's willing to give up pieces in exchange for Trae Young, don't you think you want to make that move?
I look at it like this. If I'm the Wizards and I'm looking around and I'm saying, oh my God, the Hawks are so incompetent that they can't build around Trae Young. That's the only, there's one of two answers here. Either Trae Young isn't him anymore, or the Hawks are too incompetent to build around him. If the Hawks are too incompetent to build around Trae Young, do I believe the Wizards are more competent than Atlanta? No, I mean, nothing. They're in this position because they poorly run a basketball team. In fact, I spent some time last night looking at the Reddits and the message boards and all of the rumor mills from Wizards fans. They're more excited about the possible draft equity they could get in this than they are about Trae Young, because they believe all these draft picks are going to be part of their long-term OKC rebuild. So, like, that's where we are. You want to acquire Trae Young because you might get a draft pick with him just to get rid of CJ McCollum's contract. Like, all of this to me is just so wild. It's how the mighty have fallen. And again, you can't tell the story of the last several years of the NBA without talking about Trae in Madison Square Garden. It is one of those landmark moments we will remember. I think Trae Young has accomplished some really great things for Atlanta. I just think that if it's so broken that it can't work in Atlanta, if I'm Trae, the last place I want to go to is an organization that is less functional than Atlanta. We'll keep you updated. There's a lot to go on this. There's plenty of time. We got about a month before the trade deadline. So obviously, we will keep you updated on the latest, greatest news. It looks like Trae is headed somewhere. The question, is it Washington? And if it is Washington, is that a win for anybody, nobody, or everybody? We'll break it down as it happens. But we got more to come to in the Yahoo Sports Daily, including coming up next, Wyndham Clark going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on the TGL happening right now. The lineups are set for tonight's TGL match between the Bay Golf Club and Atlanta Drive GC. That's at 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN and the ESPN app. They've been advertising the heck out of it. Looks awesome. Cannot wait to watch it. With that, joining us now will be the anchor for the Bay tonight. That's 2023 U.S. Open champion Wyndham Clark. Wyndham, appreciate your time, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's the first TGL match of the season. So give us a little bit of why you're excited to be in year 2 of this TGL fun.
Well, last year we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into, and the first few you were just getting used to the simulator, the arena, etc. And this year, now we know we're kind of veterans, and we realized how fun it was last year. The team aspect was amazing. The atmosphere is really fun, and so I'm just excited to get back in SoFi Center and be with my teammates and hopefully get a W.
Okay, can we just take a moment to look at your background? Your boots on the ground at TGL. Look at that, the clouds.
Yeah, look at that.
It's
pretty cool,
green
huh?
behind you.
Yeah, it's
That's amazing.
I should almost turn it around for you guys. It's pretty amazing.
So walk me through that. Some of the differences or some challenges that you have going, preparing for outdoor golf versus the indoor nature of TGL.
I'd say it's easier indoors for sure. You don't have the wind. You don't have too many, off lies. You don't have different grasses per se. So it's a little bit easier, but definitely you got to get your yardages that are a little bit different. They're a little bit different. The ball maybe doesn't curve as much. And then obviously the putting is challenging. So, but yeah, I mean, it's fun. Like we're here right now. There's kind of almost a shoot around like you would have in basketball. We're all kind of practicing, and then we'll go rest up. We do media, and then you come back and you have your warm up, and then we're playing.
All right, so walk me through this because, an NBA player said before that one of the hardest parts about that sport is that everybody plays some level of basketball, so they all think that they can cover it, right? Like there's this and now I'm watching you guys. You've gone from playing golf outdoors, which none of us could do successfully, to now you're simulator golf, which is also something we all struggle with. How much do you feel like just the common nature of how much people play golf changes the way that people give you any grace if you have a bad day?
I mean, in this, last year the putting green was tough, so it definitely made us look maybe a little worse. They changed it this year. It's definitely a lot better. I think in this atmosphere with teammates, there is some of that like, oh shoot, I let you down. But that's one thing you got to learn in golf is you got to have a quick, short memory, and always be your best friend on the golf course and not get so down on yourself. It's especially in this, it's a fun atmosphere. We're not, I mean, if you look at it in that way, that it's more of a game and it's for entertainment and, you're still competitive and want to try to win, I think then you're in the best mindset and then you have fun out there. And I think your best golf comes out.
You can watch TGL on ESPN tonight at 5 o'clock Eastern time, but that's not going to be the only ESPN programming that your eyes are on this weekend. As an Oregon Ducks fan, to be watching the Ducks taking on Indiana in the college football playoff in the Peach Bowl this weekend, I will allow you to put your Oregon Ducks fan hat on, put your green and yellow tinted glasses on, be a total and complete fan. Oregon has lost one game this season, and that was to Indiana earlier this season. Do you love the fact that you get a rematch in this game? Or as a fan, are you hoping that it could have just been, a totally brand new, fresh opponent?
I mean, yeah, we would have liked to play someone different. I mean, Indiana's the #1 team in the country, but if you gave me the choice between playing like Ohio State or Georgia in this game, I would choose Indiana just for the sheer fact that beating a team twice is very difficult. You saw it last year with the Ducks. We beat Ohio State, and then we played them first round and lost. So, I feel good. I feel like we're the underdog, and I think Dan Lanning's going to have the team ready to go, and obviously, it's an uphill battle, but I think this is kind of the championship game, if I'm being honest. I think whoever wins this probably goes on to win the championship. So, hopefully they come in with that mentality and keep the defense rolling like last week, and then hopefully Dante and the boys make some nice plays and put up some points.
All right, but Indiana is sort of new as a darling in the college football world. So who are you trash talking? Like, because I just don't know that many Indiana people that are going to be out there blowing your phone up with them. Like, who do you trash talk during this game?
I mean, honestly, nobody. Out of the woodworks, I found some guys I didn't even know went to Indiana. They never talk trash, and they're like, you know, saying stuff, and I go, you guys are never in this. And more than anything, just because they're not or haven't been as competitive in years past. If we didn't win, I'm happy for them. I know that's crazy to say, but I don't want anyone else to win because you're just not used to having Indiana there. So, I'm cheering them on if we don't win. But there's definitely trash talk. I maybe have a few friends that have gone to Indiana, so I don't really have anyone to talk to. I don't even know anyone on tour that went to Indiana, so there's a lack of trash talk. Let's say that.
So who's the biggest college football trash talker in your circle?
Oh my gosh! I mean, you're talking golfers or just
Just whatever. Whoever's blowing your phone. You can give me any famous people you want, Wyndham. Let's go.
I would say I definitely have. Let me think. Well, okay. Currently, right now, actually, the guy who manages our TGL team, Josh Seipel, he's an Ole Miss guy, and he's been talking trash. And I'm like, come on, you guys shouldn't even be in this situation. They don't have a coach. They're first timers. So he's been talking trash. My close friends definitely are like, Oregon can't do it. They're still the Pac-12. They can't pull it out. And then, yeah, then I'd say the biggest as far as guys on tour is the Georgia guys. They've been kind of on top the last few years, and they just look at everyone else. They kind of look down on everyone else. And I'd say in the last couple of years, things have changed. Big Ten's kind of the dominant football conference.
Yeah, it's easy to say to the trash talking Indiana or Ole Miss fans, like, okay, all right, you've never been here before. But the Georgia fans that trash talk, it's like, okay, you're right. I defer to you. You have been at the top of the sport for quite some time. But somebody who is an epic trash talker, though, is Oregon's head coach in Dan Lanning. I will inject his pregame and halftime hype up speeches into my veins. Is he a better coach than Kurt Signetti?
Oh, 100%. I do think, I mean, what he's done in Indiana is very impressive. But I mean, Dan's won championships with Georgia. Pretty sure he's won it with Alabama. Like he's kind of done it all. He just has to do it on his own. And I think you have two coaches that haven't won on their own. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a fair battle. But I put my allegiance with Dan. I've been around him. He's the most intense guy I've ever been around. Like you said, his pregame speeches are epic. I got to see a post-game speech before they played CU. I don't know if it was last year. Yeah, I think it was last year. And man, being in there, I got chills. I wanted to run through a wall. And so I'm hoping that he gets the guys like that for this next game. But yeah, I'm a huge Dan Lanning fan.
All right, you're also a huge Broncos fan, and I've got a Raiders helmet behind me, which makes us mortal enemies. Here's the real question, though. My team sucks. Your team does not. My team has the first pick in the draft, which could be, depending on which mock draft you read, could be Dante Moore if he comes out. So if Dante Moore comes out and he's the quarterback of my beloved Raiders, will you have to root for the Raiders against the Broncos because the Oregon tie? Come on.
No chance.
Okay.
No offense to Dante. I will never root for the Raiders ever, ever, ever. Maybe an individual player, I might say, oh, it's nice that he's having a good game or whatever, but no. Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, it's just not a question. I can't root for them.
I respect it.
Well, still TBD on what Dante Moore's future looks like. Will he come back to Oregon? Will he declare for the NFL draft? What would your fan reaction be if Dante Moore decides to come back to Oregon next year?
If he's a top 10 pick, it's a no-brainer for him. He's got to go. If he thinks he could slide, yeah, I think maybe you stay. I mean, now with NIL in college, he's, getting compensated for his play. I personally think that another year in college would be great for him. And then, selfishly, I would love to have him back for one more year because, we have an incredible recruiting class for next year and we already have a great team. And I just think the more snaps he gets, the better he's going to be. So, yeah, selfishly, I'd love to have him again. If we don't win this year, if he comes back, I think we'll win next year.
You were a high school classmate of Christian McCaffrey, and Christian McCaffrey's obviously having an incredible season. So, what's your relationship like with him, and what do you see from him now?
It's Christian's had obviously an amazing career. It's just been a tale of if he's healthy, he's the best running back in football, and if he's obviously not healthy, he's not playing. So, yeah, big fan. We stay in touch. We have so many mutual friends. His brother Max is a good buddy of mine, and we have a big group chat with a bunch of guys that we're all chirping on there, and we all root for CMAC, of course. So we talk every once in a while, and then when he's in the off season, he'll ask some golf questions, and I probably see him once, maybe twice a year, and maybe go watch a game or two. So yeah, we're still friendly. I mean, now that he's married and has kids, it's a little different dynamic. He's got a lot of things that he's got to deal with, but yeah, we're still buddies for sure.
That clip that we just played looked like 16 at the Waste Management Open. Is that
Yep.
the best hole in golf?
Definitely the most exciting. I definitely the most exciting. And you're probably right. It is probably the best hole in golf. I mean, there's that and probably 17 at TPC Sawgrass. Those, as a player, you walk in and you have so much energy and like I'd say it gives you kind of the feeling you'd get if you were walking out of a tunnel for a football game or a basketball game where you're just so amped, hyped up that you can run through a wall. And that's one of the tough things about that hole is you have to control your excitement because you hit it way farther. And so typically you're hitting one club less because of that, adrenaline that's running through your veins. So it's so much fun. And if you hit a good shot, make a birdie, yeah, I mean, we feel like we're in another sport where you just can celebrate and kind of do whatever you want. And yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite holes.
Speaking of PGA courses, Brooks Koepka has announced his intention to leave Live Golf. We all saw this. Would you welcome Brooks back on the PGA Tour? Even maybe welcome him TGL one day?
For sure, TGL. I'm good buddies with Brooks, and I don't know. I'm torn on this. As a guy that kind of stayed on the PGA Tour, I don't know how I feel about it, but I also know Brooks is one of the best players in the world, and I think it benefits the tour. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, I mean that's kind of all I can give you. I don't really know. I just want whatever is best for the PGA Tour.
Well, the TGL kicks off tonight on ESPN 5 p.m. Don't want to miss it. Wyndham, good luck. We really appreciate you hanging out with us. Best of luck this season with the TGL. Going to be a fun watch. And begrudgingly, good luck to your Broncos. That's the best I can say.
Yeah, thank you guys. And hey, go Ducks.
Go Ducks. There
Go
we go.
Ducks.
Wyndham Clark joining the show. He's going to have a good week. There's no doubt about it. Coming up next, could LeBron be traded? There's a wild scenario that could actually work. We'll tell you about it next. Okay, so we have worked this out. This is an actual trade that could work because NBA trades are wildly complicated, and it would involve everybody with the last name James from the Lakers being sent to the Warriors in exchange for Jimmy Butler and Will Richard. That is where we are as we find an actual trade that works. So we're not pulling this out of thin air. There are reports that have surfaced over the past week that Rich Paul did have very real conversations with the Cavs, the Mavs, the Clips, and the Warriors about LeBron James, that per Scoop B. Robinson. And the rumors regarding a potential LeBron James trade over the summer weren't just smoke. We've also seen plenty of smoke in the last 24 hours as I feel like every reporter is coming out with some anti-Lakers report on what's going on. So who says no to this trade that essentially makes sure that Jimmy Butler goes to the Lakers and both of the James head to Golden State?
First of all, I love this because this is fun. And sports should be fun, and we are allowed to talk about things that are fun. But who says no, Golden State? Because I don't think that Golden State is better without Jimmy Butler and with LeBron James. Weird that I'm saying that a team's not better with LeBron James, but sign of the times, I guess. But Golden State gets worse defensively without Jimmy Butler. And what the Golden State Warriors don't get in LeBron James is consistency. What's been a big issue with the Warriors? Consistency. What's one of the biggest kind of dark clouds plaguing that organization? Age. They're all old. It's a team full of pee-pops. Does LeBron James make you younger? Of course not. So I don't think, I look at the Lakers, what they get is a defensive upgrade in Jimmy Butler. You're not signing on for long-term of Jimmy Butler. His contract is up next season. So this makes sense, I think, for the Lakers because what they need is defense. What Jimmy Butler gives them is defense, and it's not a long-term commitment. But I think Golden State says no because I don't think that LeBron makes them better, or at least significantly better enough to be in contention with the Spurs and the Thunder and the powers that exist in the West.
This is where I, again, get to be Debbie Downer. It's my favorite. Look, who does this really improve? Like, I get it. Hey, you know what? I love it for the salacious storylines, and I love it because, oh, my God, now we have another reason to talk about LeBron. Yeah, it's sexy as hell. But, like, at this point, it feels, this is the, thank you, Debbie Downer, back. This is the equivalent of, I don't know, a midlife crisis sports car that you don't really need, and it doesn't really do anything for you. And a couple of years after you're driving around in the Corvette, you're like, yeah, I look like an idiot. That's how all of the teams will be in this because, to your point, okay, look at what the Lakers need. The Lakers are desperate for perimeter help. They're desperate for defensive help. Yes, 100%. I understand that that's what they need. They also need some depth. And if they get all of those things at once, and if J.J. Redick finds the pulse of this team, and some would argue that he's lost that over the course of the last few weeks, if all of those things happen gloriously for the Lakers, they're the third best team in the West. What are we doing, right? Okay, so you move some pieces around, but the Titanic is still sinking. Like you move the string quartet from over here to over here, but the thing is still going down. It doesn't really change any of that. And then from the Warriors side, when you've got Steve Kerr sitting at a podium saying, hey, we get it. We are not going to be year in and year out competitive with OKC and San Antonio for the next few years. That is not about to suddenly change. Adding 4,372-year-old LeBron James that doesn't play defense anymore is not going to fix that. Like, you didn't suddenly get this spark plug of energy that's going to make you better defensively and also make you deeper and suddenly capable of taking on the depth of OKC's five. Like, I get it. OKC's on a bit of a slump right now because they're only playing 500 basketball for the last couple of weeks. I understand it. And maybe that convinces you that suddenly the doors are open. Golden State, Lakers, the doors are not open. The sooner that you just accept the fact that as your rosters are built right now, you are not going to win a championship. And this is the important part of it, that there is nothing you're going to acquire between now and next month that's going to change that. The sooner you understand why this trade would just be moving decks around so that First Take has more things to yell about.
It would be fun. Like if we just want to look at it under the lens of, is it cool? Yes, it is. It's totally cool. So under that, the rule of cool, it passes with flying colors, 100% A+ there. But I think the Golden State Warriors approach to keeping this window open, not this iteration of the Warriors, but the championship Warriors as a franchise, the key to keeping that open is getting younger, using your pieces to extend this window, to get younger, to have your next, super team, to find your next key pieces and foundational pieces to make you a championship caliber team over the next 5 to 10 years. What you would be doing is getting older if you trade for LeBron. I didn't even think it was possible for the Warriors to get older. So it doesn't make sense for the Warriors. Frankly, I would kind of love it for the Lakers because I do think that Jimmy Butler makes the Lakers better.
That's interesting. Jimmy Butler makes so to the point that I just made about needing better intensity defensively. Jimmy Butler's certainly going to do that.
He does that.
You're right. You're 1,000% right. He probably, it's weird to say in a vacuum Jimmy Butler would make the Lakers better than LeBron would make the Lakers. Like, that take feels very weird. I don't think you're wrong. I don't think there's enough wins above replacement to really move the needle on where the Lakers will finish, but I do think it would make them tougher. I think that's a fair statement, and I think it would make them much better aggravators on the defensive side of the ball. So, like, yeah, I you can sell me that it makes the Lakers a little bit better. I don't disagree with that. What do you think, though, the chances are in this process that we actually see a LeBron trade? Remember, it was Super Bowl week last year that everybody was suddenly floored when Luka was traded. So what are the chances you could see a stunning, shocking Lakers trade in your mind?
Anything can happen in the NBA, like you said, as we learned about 1 year ago today. I still think we can talk all day long about, Jimmy for LeBron, LeBron for insert player here. And we're going to be talking about those kinds of things because that's just what we do around trade deadline time. I still think the chance that LeBron gets traded is like 10% at the absolute most. Because I think for the Lakers to make this move worth their while of trading LeBron James, I mean, like, that is, even though LeBron is not the version of the player that he was 10 or 15 years ago, LeBron can still play at an incredibly high level. LeBron James is still LeBron James. So what the Lakers would need in return to make this trade worthwhile, I don't really think there's a team out there that would be willing to do that for an expiring contract for a player that's likely in his final season of his career, if not, final seasons of his career. I just don't think a team would be willing to trade what it takes for what you're going to get in return for LeBron James.
Well, and the Lakers have a history of acquiring huge names, not of sending away huge names. If they were going to do something on LeBron, there were so many opportunities they could have done something on LeBron before. To do something now just feels like you're late to the party. The return is going to be minimal. Also, if I'm LeBron, wherever I get traded, like if you go to LeBron today and say, I'm trading you away from the Lakers, an organization that he obviously enjoys playing for, in a city that he obviously loves being in, that's important to him for all of his business ventures outside of just basketball. So you tell LeBron you're trading him. What's LeBron's reaction going to be if he's being traded anywhere other than an NBA favorite? Like, if you're trading LeBron to OKC, or you're trading LeBron to Denver, or you're trading LeBron even to maybe to the Spurs, if you want to include him in this. If you're trading LeBron somewhere where clearly he becomes a favorite to win the NBA title, okay, I can buy that. You're giving a player at the end of his career an opportunity for another championship. If you trade him to a mid-level West team that is just trying to find a way to be a little bit better mid-level West team, what have you really done for LeBron? And what version of LeBron are you going to get in that trade process? If I'm LeBron, I would not be. I'd be excited about playing with Steph because he's Steph, and that, obviously they respect each other's games. Am I excited about being a Golden State Warrior where my fate isn't better than it was with the Lakers, and now suddenly I got to move everything in the middle of the season? I'm not excited about that at all. So I think part of the difficulty here is that the only trade that could make sense for LeBron would be a massive epic trade to a contender, to an NBA title contender. And I don't think that there's an NBA title contender out there that wants to give up their future equity for LeBron. And all of this sounds like I'm being anti-LeBron. I'm not. I'm just being super realistic, Caroline, about where LeBron is at this point in his career, where the Lakers are, and where everybody else is in the West.
And I think there's a certain level of respect that the Lakers have to have and move forward with LeBron with this. Because I don't think that the Lakers should, not let LeBron control his own narrative. if the Lakers are serious about moving off of LeBron, I think that's a conversation that they have to have with him of like, where do you want to go? What is your next path? And of course, this is the Lakers, it's not Lakers.gov. Like they're a for-profit organization. The Lakers are in the business of winning games and making money. You can't just kind of hand out warm fuzzies everywhere and do whatever you want and cater to all of the needs of every single player. But we're talking about LeBron James here. I don't think that the Lakers organization is in a position to say, hey, LeBron, can you come into my office for a moment? Yeah. Hey, we just traded you to the Clippers. Random team that I just pulled. But how crazy would that be? Man, LeBron with the Clippers. Yeah, they're not in a position to do that. I think this is a decision that the Lakers owe LeBron to make this decision kind of hand in hand with him, understanding that it has to make basketball and business sense as well.
Well, and also to use the poker term, they're pot committed, right? Like they've had so many opportunities to decide that they didn't want LeBron to have as much of an input in the way the organization was being run. And most of those opportunities, they have not done that. So to do it now feels like too little, too late when you've already lost opportunity to maximize on. And I do want to stress this because, like, look, we're talking about would Jimmy Butler be better for the Lakers? Part of the reason we have that conversation is that this year, it's a pretty clear argument that LeBron is the third most important Laker. So that's part of what makes all of this complicated. Like, take LeBron's name off of this and say, all right, the third best player on the Lakers being traded for Jimmy Butler. Okay, it becomes sexy because it is LeBron, but with the way that Luka has played ever since he got, especially himself in shape, the way he's played with the Lakers, and then frankly, who Austin Reeves has become sustainably throughout the course of this season, health aside right now, who he's become sustainably throughout the course of this season. I mean, to me, you're talking about if I improve my third best player alone, does it suddenly make me an epic team? And when you answer the question that way for the Lakers, the answer is no. So now you do what the Lakers organizationally have almost always done. They honor the stars that have played for them. If you are the sort of player that is going to have the opportunity to have a statue, the Lakers don't push that person out the door very often. Speaking of Golden State, there was one piece of news last night. Don't know if you saw this, but entertaining moment here. Steve Kerr ejected from the game last night. Steve Kerr was ejected, in fairness, for what was just one of the worst misses I've seen from a NBA official. In fact, the assistant coach got up to the podium after the game just so Steve wouldn't get fined. It was clearly a goaltending call. Like, I love the fact that we have reviews and 2-minute reports, and we have 87 refs on the court, and like the TV sees it's a goaltending, nobody else sees it. But Steve Kerr got angry, and angry Kerr got himself ejected. Maybe the best part of that was Snoop Dogg was on the call last night for the game, and Snoop Dogg was calling it perfectly. I mean, Snoop calling Steve Kerr getting ejected and saying at one point that he was straight out of Compton. Like, this was just a chef's kiss moment. I need Snoop Dogg on every single call.
More Snoop is a good thing. And in anything, in life, in sports, in entertainment, and music. Did you ever watch Planet Earth? When Snoop Dogg was narrating the show Planet Earth, and he's talking about like lizards and fish and bears, like all of these animals in nature. So he's narrating the show Planet Earth, and it was epic. It was so funny. It was so Snoop. It was so authentic. It was so entertaining. So I am here for Snoop doing basketball play-by-play. I'm here for Snoop doing, Mother Nature, wildlife play-by-play. I would genuinely love if I just had Snoop Dogg following me around in my everyday life, narrating my everyday life. More of Snoop is a great thing, and also good for Steve Kerr.
I don't know if I have ever seen in pop culture anywhere a change in the way a person is perceived like I have with Snoop. And let me be the old man as I am on this show, and remind everybody that in 1993, when I was a young buck here listening to music, Snoop Dogg was literally on trial for murder. He was acquitted in a self-defense trial in 1996. But when I was a kid, and you talked about what at the time was categorized as gangster rap, and you talked about some of the rappers out there that just put the fear of God into so many people, Snoop was one of them. So to think that we've gone from Snoop Dogg, the on trial for murder, just absolute rapper, hardcore in everything he does, to Snoop Dogg smoking weed with Martha Stewart and then doing NBA play-by-play. I'm in for the transformation and just the globalization of the brand of Snoop Dogg. Someday, somebody will do commercialized studies on Snoop Dogg's ability to take his brand, to change his brand, and to monetize every single ounce of it. I don't know that there are many people in the world cooler than Snoop Dogg. I don't know that there are many more people that have more star power than Snoop. I want him on every NBA broadcast. I want him on every Olympic
100%.
broadcast. I want him on everything that he does. But kudos to Snoop Dogg, who has, in my lifetime, wildly changed the way the world sees him. All right, coming up, we will get back to some of the NFL openings that are out there in the way only this show can. We're going to figure out, Caroline's going to sell me on the job openings that are out there. We'll see if I'm buying. Coming next. Cleveland native Jonathan Gannon would be an excellent head coach candidate for the Browns. That from Mary Kay Cabot, which in fairness, I think made our incredible producer, Mike Goldfarb, actually ill when he read it. He is a lifelong diehard Browns fan. But it brings us to an opportunity. You know what, Caroline fan? We're gonna look at these job openings the way only this show can. We're gonna go full used car salesman, where you are the salesman and you get to sell me on each of these jobs. Let's figure out. I'm in the market. Let's figure out what I am buying. Are you ready for this, my friend?
I am so ready. Have you heard the term, Fitz, putting lipstick on a pig?
Yes, I have. Yeah, it's called my dating life.
I'm going to be doing a little bit of that today.
Okay.
But I will convince you nonetheless. So drum roll, please. We will start with our first beautiful car that I will be selling you, because I am telling you, Fitz, this Cleveland Browns team, this baby has everything. Defense wins championship is what the old adage says. And Cleveland has the best defensive player in all of the land, who will be, I predict, the unanimous defensive player of the year, the sack king, Myles Garrett. This Cleveland Browns defense has truly everything that you could be looking for. And look at this 2025 draft class. Harold Fannin and Carson Schlesinger, who was the betting favorite to be defensive rookie of the year as well. I mean, if defensive player of the year wasn't enough, here's a rookie to add on top of it. You've got Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson coming out of the backfield. Mason Graham at defensive tackle. This 2025 draft class is cheap and they are young, and you can continue to build on top of them. And look around at the AFC North. Is anyone overly intimidated by any of these teams? The Bengals have missed the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. Joe Burrow, schmo, who cares? They haven't been in the playoffs. This division came down to the last game of the year. There's question marks. Mike Tomlin's job security, John Harbaugh's job security. This division looked like it was going to be one of the most competitive in the NFL. Actually, turns out it might just be very wide open. What do you say? You buying me on the Cleveland Browns?
Oh, look, you made some really strong points here. I will add, Cleveland has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Cleveland also has the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Cleveland also has the Christmas Story Museum, where the movie Christmas Story, the house where that was filmed, all right there in Cleveland.
See,
cost
you're
of
buying
living
into
is
it
low.
already.
You've given me a beautiful
Cleveland,
car
famously
with no
beautiful
engine.
City.
There's no engine. I cannot buy this car. I don't have a quarterback. Like you left out the one important thing. I'm going to go into the fall, I believe, as we sit today, with the quarterback competition between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. Now, maybe Shedeur is the answer, and maybe another coach can come in and just get, this glorious gift from God from Shedeur Sanders. Maybe that happens, but no, just humor yourself for a minute and take a look at where every single quarterback in this year's draft playoffs was drafted. What round were they drafted in? It will be eye-opening for you, and I'll clue you in. There's not a single fifth-rounder on there. So I know Shedeur wasn't supposed to be a fifth rounder. I don't care. There's no engine to this
Still
car.
was.
No quarterback. I can't drive a car without an engine. I am not buying the Cleveland Browns. Honk.
Yeah. I don't blame you on that one. I also conveniently left out the ownership and general manager situation, because if I am a prospective head coach, no way in hell I am signing up to go work for the Haslams and Andrew Berry. That's a bunch of ding-dongs. I'm making decisions there in Cleveland, and I do not want to sign up for that. So I tried. I really did try.
Oh, that's good.
And I meant
What do you
it.
have next?
Look, you have the young draft class, good defense.
Yeah.
Cleveland's great.
Sure.
Don't send me there, but Cleveland's great. Okay, what about this one? We just got this one in stock yesterday on Monday. This baby has everything, Fitz. Well, how does a first overall pick sound? I don't know. Quarterback of the future, Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza. You know what? Doesn't matter. You can pick whatever you want. You got your pick of the litter. You want to trade back and collect draft picks to continue to build your roster for the future? You can do that. The world is at your fingertips. The world is your oyster. And with the Raiders, you can make very, very big pearls. Number 1 overall pick and a whole mess of cap space. You might say that cap space is French for no good players on your team. No, au contraire, mon frère. I say that cap space is French for potential, because you have so much money that you could potentially spend on your roster. You need to upgrade the lines of scrimmage. You can do that. You got money for that. You need to upgrade your defensive secondary. No worries. You have money to do that. You have all of this money and all of this capital to put pieces around your young quarterback and your franchise quarterback of the future, the number 1 overall pick, Fitzy. It's your team. So are you selling the car that I'm trying to sell you? Or are you buying the car that I'm selling you?
God, no. Like you're pulling up with this car, and all I'm like, see, here's the problem. You're the used car salesman, but Mark Davis is your manager, and I'm looking around at Mark Davis, and I'm seeing that haircut, and I'm like, nope, I'm out. Look, I'm the diehard Raiders fan. We all know that. Haircut. Here's the most important thing from the coaching standpoint. I took the time to look this up. How many coaches? If you go all the way back to 1995. 1995. Since 1995, John Gruden and Jack Del Rio are the only 2 Raiders coaches that have made it through 3 seasons. Since 1995, only 2 coaches have made it through 3 seasons. Think about that. If you get hired by the Raiders, the only inevitability is you're going to get fired before the end of season 3, because that's what history shows me every single time. You're right. I do think that there's a very real path to fixing the Raiders. Of course I think that, because I bleed silver and black. So I want to believe that Fernando Mendoza is the first overall pick is going to be great, and the $100 million is going to be used just on the offensive line, and then the offense won't be broken and they can fix the defense. I can work myself into this. I cannot buy it, though, because I think the one thing that the Raiders are going to need to turn it around, the Raiders are fat. They looked in the mirror and they said, you know what? I'm fat. And sometimes when you look in the mirror and you're fat, you can't take Ozempic. You just got to go to the gym every day. And it takes a long time to do it the right way. The Raiders are going to be fat for the next 5 years. I don't trust any coach gets 5 years. I'm not buying.
And your loss on Fernando Mendoza, the cutie patootie of the year. He is the cutest person on planet Earth, so you don't get him.
He is.
Let's go on to he's precious. All right, what about this one? If you are not gonna buy what I'm selling you on those first two, can I interest you in a young quarterback who has been so incredibly exciting to watch in Jackson Dart, an elite wide receiver who will be healthy next year in Malik Neighbors? Probably the most exciting running back in the National Football League. No, I'm not talking about Jahmyr Gibbs. No, I'm not talking about Bijan Robinson. I'm talking about Cam Scatteroo, one of the most exciting young players in the National Football League. And you've got that nasty defensive front, Brian Burns and Abdul Carter and Thibodeau. What are we thinking about this New York Giants team? They have all the pieces. They have all the young talent. They're just one coach away from being a contender. What do you say?
Give me the keys, rev up the engine, let's go.
Yes!
I think, honestly,
Yes!
I think the Giants are the best of all of the jobs that are out there to be had, because I do believe that they have their quarterback, and I do believe that they have one of the young stars at wide receiver, and I think Cam's going to turn out to be a really good running back, and I like the core pieces that they have to build around on the defensive line. I can't figure out exactly why it went so wrong with the Giants, but I do believe that a competent coach that comes in and knows what they're doing can turn this thing around fairly quickly. I think the Giants are in a great spot compared to some of these other openings because we've seen just enough to feel like there's something developable there. So, yeah, 100%. Hand me the keys. I'm pulling this thing off the lot. The value depreciates right away. I wish I'd bought used, but instead I'm going to buy this car, and you are going to make full commission because I bought it new.
Yay! Oh, I'm rich. Woohoo, woohoo! Now that you've officially bought it, I will point out that you're gonna have to work with Joe Shane. So good luck. Have fun with that.
Okay.
If you say that the Giants job is the best opening, and I don't disagree with you, I think this job is the second best, if not even better, because you have Bijan Robinson, an elite running back. You have Drake London, an elite wide receiver. You've got a solid defense that's only going to get better because you have young pieces and James Pierce, Xavier Watts, AJ Terrell. The defense is only going to get better. You're also in a wide open division. The NFC South stinks. Your path to the playoffs is fairly open. And also, I think important to point out about Atlanta is they did not just move on from Raheem Morris. No, they moved on from Terry Fontenot as well. So you as a head coach will be coming in with a brand new general manager as well, not some other GM that's feeling the heat on their seat that's going to do whatever it takes to save their job. No. You will be in lockstep with the brand new general manager coming in. So what do we say? The Atlanta Falcons, you buying it? I think you got a 2-car garage, Fitz. You can fit this one in your house.
No, see, here's the problem. Like, you've given me all of the bells and whistles on this, but we haven't actually talked about, I don't know, the contracts on it. We haven't actually talked about the minutia here. Look at that cap space. That cap space is not particularly great. They can fix some of that. Kyle Pitts is a free agent. He's going to want to get paid out there. You just fired the last coach who went 8-9 in back-to-back years because it wasn't good enough. Now I have a search firm finding me the job as a coach, but a totally separate, unrelated search firm that's hiring the GM. Oh, and then a totally unrelated brand new president of team operations that's probably going to be Matt Ryan, who's never done the job before. So I hate everything about the warranty on this thing. I hate everything about the contract on this thing. And oh, by the way, I don't think I have any clear path to the quarterback. And I'm so tired of everybody saying, we'll just address quarterback when we can. Okay, well, how? Michael Penix Jr. is not a spring chicken. He's coming off of an injury, and he's only played 14 games as a starter. Kirk Cousins is paid too much to be Kirk Cousins. So I don't have any clear path to the quarterback. And being a 500 football team is only going to get me fired. So, look, I'm out. I'm out on that. Like, it looks pretty. It pulls onto the lot, and, boy, it looks pretty. And this is one of those moments where I went into the chair with your manager, and I was ready to finance this whole thing. I was ready to do it. And then I looked at the payments, and I'm like, nope, we are not doing this thing. We are not. You can't sell me on it. I'm out on the Falcons.
And you also don't have a first-round pick. That
no first-round pick.
Makes it a little bit more difficult to continue to build a contender. All right, Tennessee Titans. Interested in Cam Ward, a Heisman Trophy finalist? And you might say Cam Ward isn't an NFL quarterback. And I would say, well, no. He's just a product of absolute doo-doo that's around him because that's what he was faced with last year with the Titans. So you get the opportunity to work with Cam Ward. He is a blank canvas. Save him from himself, save him from the Tennessee Titans. Again, another winnable division. Sure, that looks a little bit more difficult now with the Jags and the Texans, but this isn't, the NFC West that we're talking about here. You can win this division. No state income tax in Tennessee. You take home more of your money.
And $110 million in cap space. I'll give you that. Look, okay, so this is the car where I came onto the lot, and I didn't want any of your great cars, and I didn't want any of your bad cars, and now you've pulled up with a car that I'm not really enamored with, but I'm like, I guess. Like, to your point, they do have a quarterback. If you believe in Cam Ward more than you believe in Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore, then this is a better job than the Raiders can offer you for sure. They have a ton of money to spend, so I'll buy into that. And look, they fire somebody every year. Like, that's the cycle. They fire either the GM or the team president or the coach every year. But if I'm the new guy, I got a couple of years. So, look, I don't love this. I don't think that this is where I go out and suddenly, if I have options, if I can afford anything better, I'm not buying this. But you've talked me into it enough that, like, I'll buy it. But a weekend, I'm apologizing to my friends when they're like, oh, you got a new car. And I'm like, yeah, it's Titans, but I got a new car. Does that count?
Yeah. New stadium. That's exciting.
Yeah. Oh, new stadium too. New stadium and Nashville, fun place to live. Look, fun place to live.
Nashville's fun.
You've done a glorious job as a used car salesman. By the way, that suit spectacular. So spectacular. Great job by Caroline Fenton. She did earn some commissions. She sold an expensive car and a really bad car to me. I walked on the rest. I think I did a pretty good job. Coming up,
we're just ignoring the Arizona Cardinals because who cares?
We'll get to the Cardinals later. We're out of time. We'll get Frank's thoughts on our used car sales opportunities. Frank Schwab going to join us. Power Frankings coming up next. It's the most wonderful time of the week because it's time for our power rankings. The great Frank Schwab joins us to give us his absolutely perfect, flawless, and absolutely incredible rankings. You can tell it's the last week of the regular season. I'm just building you up, Frank, because we appreciate you so much coming up. Usually I tell you how much your rankings suck. This week, not bad. I'll say not bad. We'll give you a not bad. Let's pull them up, and we'll go through them and see how Frank did on the power rankings this week. In at number one, no changes in the top four. Seattle, the Broncos, the Patriots, and the Rams. So I will ask you this. Now that we've seen the playoff matchups, Frank, who has the best shot at the Super Bowl?
I think it's Seattle. I mean, how could I not say Seattle? They're my number one team. They're 2 home games away from the Super Bowl here. I think they'll face the Rams in the NFC Championship game, though. The Rams are the one team that when I did these rankings, I was like, I know they're better than the fourth best team. I really, truly in my heart think they're the second best team in the NFL, but they struggled down the stretch. They lost some games. They didn't even look great against the Cardinals in week 18. You had Sean McVay after week 17 saying, my starters got to play because we're not playing good football. So I kind of had to keep them at 4, but I do think we're in for a Seahawks-Rams, trifecta here. We're gonna see them a third time in the NFC Championship game. But yes, I think the Seahawks are the clear favorite. They were the best team. I don't think there's any question about who should be number 1 in the final power rankings. This was a team that they've lost 3 games by combined 9 points all season. They blasted the 49ers in week 18. This is your best team in football. That defense is going to be really hard to beat in Seattle. 2 home games away from the Super Bowl. The answer has to be Seattle at this point.
Let's look at New England, because I feel like I keep hearing they haven't played anybody. Who have they beaten? Look at their strength of schedule. And look, it's not wrong. They have played some rinky-dinks, but they've looked really good while doing it. They've beaten who's on their schedule. How do you think that could come to effect in the postseason?
I don't really think it does. Yes, it matters to some extent, but there's not some AFC power out there either. Like, everybody talks about the Bills because of Josh Allen. The Bills have had their moments where I'm like, this Bills team ain't it, aside from their superhero quarterback. And we talked about this last week on Inside Coverage when Jory was on. We talked about the her MVP vote and her decision. And what I said was, and I'll stick by this, strength of schedule is a college thing, because you could play in the Mountain West, right? And you're just playing Fresno State every week. That doesn't happen in the NFL. The easiest NFL schedule is not that much different than the toughest NFL schedule. Yes, there's a difference. I get that. But it's not something that just disqualifies. It's not a disqualifier for Drake May for MVP. It's not a disqualifier for the Patriots making a Super Bowl. Like, you still have to, you go 14-3 against NFL competition. You're doing work. And I think it's weird how it's gotten overblown this year. I think a lot of it is because people who want Stafford to win MVP need to make an argument to justify that pick over Drake May. And then it's never been an issue for MVP of, strength of schedule. I've never heard this in my life, ever. I follow the MVP. I've followed the NFL for 40 some years. I follow MVP every year. I have never heard this kind of discourse about strength of schedule. It's just people want Matthew Stafford to be MVP, so they're making this argument. That's the whole point. So no, my mini rant there, Caroline, I don't think strength of schedule matters as much as we're making it out this year.
The college football playoff committee has just infiltrated all of our minds and all things football.
It is. It honestly is. I think that's part of it. I think it really, truly is, because there's just not a James Madison. This is not one of those scenarios. The Patriots still played 17 games against NFL competition this year.
So to that point about MVP, if you had an MVP vote, who would it be?
I say that. I still think I'd go Stafford. I just think he had the better year overall, but I'm fine with Drake May. It's one of those years, rare years. You guys know me well enough. I have an opinion about everything, even though I'm wrong a lot of times. I don't really have an opinion this year. I'm fine with either one. I think it's a total 50-50 thing. I slightly lean Stafford just because week in, week out, he just blows me away with how well he's playing. Maybe there's some narrative in my head of, this is last chance, and he had the injuries in August and he overcame that. I hope not, because I usually try to leave that out of the conversation. I slightly lean Stafford, but it's a 51-49 type of conversation.
Let's stick with that theme of postseason awards as we get into our next group of power rankings. Jacksonville at 5, San Francisco 6, Houston 7, and Chicago at 8. Of these 4 teams, is the coach of the year coaching one of these teams?
Absolutely. I still think it's Kyle Shanahan. And I don't, I understand the arguments for other people. Mike Macdonald, right? If you want to make Mike Macdonald your coach of the year, okay, that's fine. He coached the best team. I think the coach of the year should go to best coach more often than it does. I think that you have, Ben Johnson did a great job with Caleb Williams and bringing that team along. But I think the best coaching job this season was by Kyle Shanahan. I know that they lost their final game. I don't even care. For that team to get to as far as they've gone with all the injuries they dealt with, I thought Kyle Shanahan had to do not just the best coaching job this year, but the best coaching job in many years. I give the 49ers a ton of respect for getting to where they went, and to being that close to the number 1 seed in the NFC blows me away with all the injuries. To me, it's still Kyle Shanahan. I have not wavered on that at all.
So how do you feel about the Jags, who are your 5th best team, but they're taking on the Bills in the playoffs, a team that many of us are afraid to just pick against because we all know Josh Allen is still Josh Allen.
It's fascinating. I mean, I don't know if there's a hotter team in the NFL than the Jaguars, and we don't talk about them a lot. They're just one of these teams that's in one of those markets that just gets ignored a lot, and that's just the way it is. Like doesn't happen often in the NFL, but for this team specifically, it's just not a huge market. There's not a lot of buzz. It's not a lot of so we don't talk a lot about the Jaguars, but they've won 8 in a row. The second longest winning streak in the NFL. Texans have 9 in a row. And they're playing well on both sides of the ball. They're really opportunistic on defense. Trevor Lawrence playing the best. We've both been critical of Trevor Lawrence, but we've seen a different quarterback the last 6-7 weeks. It's like Liam Cohen's system just clicked. It just is happening for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he accounted for, I believe, 38 touchdowns this year, had a really, really good year. So I'm leaning to Jaguars just because I think they're a better team than the Bills, but yes, it is scary to go against Superman, right? Like he is Josh Allen's, I think, the only dude in these playoffs, both sides, where you're just like, I know his team's not great, but I don't want to spend 3 hours going against that dude. He can carry his team much further than it deserves to go. So that might be the most I think the Bills are the most fascinating team in the playoffs because they could go one and done or they could win a Super Bowl. I believe either way.
So look at your list then, because you have the Bills in your next grouping. If we look at 9 through 12, and not a lot of change this week, obviously, the Bills are at 10. If they do have an early exit, do you believe that Sean McDermott should be on the hot seat?
I could see it. I understand it. I understand the Bills saying, what happened this year? Like the defense kind of fell apart in many ways. They just don't, they're just a flawed team. They're a very flawed team. And you say, the Patriots have passed us. They're not going to be easy to catch now. Like the Patriots still have some room to grow. Like the Patriots, I think Drake May's going to get even better. He's only in his second year. We got to forget that, right? Like he's going to get better. They still have a lot of money to work with as far as adding guys in free agency. They just had a very good draft. So I think the Patriots have surpassed them. And if you're the Bills, you say, what are we doing? We're backsliding a little bit. If it's not happened yet under Sean McDermott, is it ever going to happen? I think that's a fair conversation. Now, I do think that the Bills would have to look and say, who are we really going to hire? Who's out there? Like, I don't know that necessarily John Harbaugh is going to be out there or whoever. Like, is the next coach you're getting better than Sean McDermott? I don't know. The answer to that question is yes. So that has to weigh on them too. But I would understand it if there's a conversation about McDermott if they go one and done.
One conversation that I don't necessarily understand, maybe you can explain it for me, Frank, is the Green Bay Packers. About LaFleur.
Yeah.
Will LaFleur come back? Will there be a vacancy in Green Bay? And look, I know 9-7-1 isn't necessarily the sexiest record in the NFL, but the Green Bay Packers have been consistent playoff contenders under his watch. So is all of this conversation about Matt LaFleur potentially being let go in Green Bay or, not extended, is there validity to that? Do you agree with that?
I don't. It blows my mind. It really does. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Matt LaFleur's a good coach. And whoever you hire next is probably not going to be better than Matt LaFleur. Look at his career record. Look, he's not perfect. No, he hasn't won Super Bowls yet. I get that. But is your team better off firing Matt LaFleur and going and hiring Clint Kubiak? Maybe, but we don't know. Like, it could be much worse. Clint Kubiak could be Adam Gase. We just don't know. Matt LaFleur's a good coach, period. Yes, they're 9-7-1, and that's hugely disappointing based on their expectations and how they started the season. There's some nuance there involved, though. I mean, you lose your best player. You might lose Tucker Kraft was their third, fourth best player? Like, they lost him too. They've lost a bunch of guys to injury. Matt LaFleur didn't overcome that. Again, Kyle Shanahan, coach of the year, like that was rare. That was rare what he did. Usually when you lose some of your best players, you are going to struggle. This whole Matt LaFleur discourse, it's weird. It's just strange to me. It's like, look, I don't cover college football, but I did a little bit back in the day. It's this SEC type of mentality of, well, we lost games, we got to fire the coach. Like, really? You don't have to. Like, you don't. I promise you. Like, keeping a good coach just because he's lost a few games is absolutely fine, because Matt LaFleur has won a ton of games, and he's the best coach for the Green Bay Packers. If they fire him, I will rake them across the coals, because I just would not agree with it whatsoever.
All right, let's go to our next group of teams. We've got Pittsburgh at 13. 14, we've got the Carolina Panthers, 15, Minnesota, and 16, the Detroit Lions. And look, I know, Frank, I watched these two teams play head-to-head on Christmas Day. Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, in your soul, believe the Vikings are a better team than the Detroit Lions.
No, not honestly. But I did have to give respect. They beat them. Right? They swept them. Like the Vikings swept the Lions. So I couldn't justify having the Lions ahead. And a little bit of this is just the Lions had no business missing the playoffs. Like this was actually the metrics really like the Lions, And I think it was just a disappointing season for them. So I had to ground them a little bit, right? Like I had to punish them a bit because this was a very, very just a flat season for the Lions. And you can't do that. You're still in your championship window. You just wasted an opportunity. I didn't like that from the Lions. And I will give respect to the Vikings. Everything around a quarterback position allowed them to win, I believe, their last 5 games to get to a winning record this season. Pretty impressed by that. I really was. Like they came alive late in the season and showed, hey, if we just get mediocre quarterback play, even a little bit below average quarterback play, we could be a very good team. So it was just a lot of this was just the Vikings sweeping the Lions and somehow winning a game when they had 3 net passing yards and all that kind of stuff. But yes, I think the Lions are a prime bounce back team in 2026. You're going to hear that all off season. You're going to hear all off season of Lions are going to be back in the playoffs. They're my sleeper team to come back because their metrics were just off the charts. They profiled as one of the 5 best teams of football if you look at the advanced metrics.
I just want to remind you, Frank, that you and I together over the summer, I told you repeatedly I thought that entire division was going to be a little less than everybody else thought.
Yeah,
God, it feels good to be right. What about this one?
Walk your walk.
Steelers. Swaggy walk. Tell the world. The Steelers, when they get their asses kicked by the Texans, and I believe they will get their asses kicked by the Texans, is Tomlin gone at that point?
I don't think so. I think that's a Mike Tomlin decision more than a Steelers decision. I would understand if Mike Tomlin is like, why am I doing this still? Well, I'm getting people are chanting to fire me at home games when all I've done is post winning seasons. I would understand that. I do understand the Steelers fans' frustrations too, but I don't think the Steelers are sitting there saying we got to get rid of Mike Tomlin. That's never been their MO. They just won a division. They just made the playoffs. Let's say they even lose, and not like the Texans are going to put up 42 points. So it'd be like a 21-3. That's the kind of blowout you'd have. Would you fire Tomlin at that? No, I don't think so. But I could see Mike Tomlin saying, I don't know, maybe I want to see the grass is greener somewhere else. Maybe I want to try my hand with the Atlanta Falcons or the New York Giants or whatever it is, because he'd be the number 1 candidate, no question about it. So I don't think the Steelers fire him, but that doesn't necessarily mean Mike Tomlin's back as their head coach.
Yeah, and I do think that we're going to see a delay in the hiring of new coaches until we find out what's going on with some of these legends.
And
which brings us to my next.
Harbaugh.
Let's go to Harbaugh because the next section is you've got 17 through 20, where you have the Falcons at 17, the Ravens down 3 at 18, the Buccaneers, and then the Colts. So, we'll go through. We've already seen the Falcons fire their head coach. The Colts are not going to make any changes. The Ravens, should Harbaugh be back next year?
I don't know. There was something really off about them all season. And then the reports came late in the year that Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson's relationship might be a bit tense and just everything going on. They know more than we do. Let's put it that way. But just watching them on the field, even as they lined up for that game-winning field goal, I was sitting there writing, obviously. I post that story right as soon as the game's done. But in the back of my mind, I was like, he's missing this kick because that's just how the Ravens season has gone. We've all watched the Ravens this season. They are just not what they should be. Like there's just something weird going on there. And maybe it is time for a change. But the thing is, we go back to this. Who do they hire? Who's better than John Harbaugh? Like, this is not a great year where there's a Ben Johnson out there, right? So they have to weigh that. But I would not be surprised if they kind of mutually part ways here. Just because, again, this season was such a disappointment. Everything seemed to be off. The whole Lamar, John Harbaugh stuff, I don't know what's going on with that, but the Ravens do. So it wouldn't surprise me. Let's put it that way.
I mean, when we're talking about disappointing teams, there's a long, long list in the NFL. The Chiefs, the Lions, the Ravens, the Bengals, the Buccaneers are on that list as well.
Yeah.
What do the Bucs do this offseason?
I'd start by firing Todd Bowles, to be honest with you. And I don't say that in any mean-spirited way. I don't have anything against Todd Bowles, but when you have a season like that, where you lose 7 of your last 8 before winning the season finale, they're barely beating the Panthers at home, by the way. When everybody got healthy, this was not like we talked about Matt LaFleur a little bit ago and how he lost everybody and he struggled. The Buccaneers got healthier as the season went on. Mike Evans came back. Bucky Irvin came back. All these guys who had been out for them the first half of the season came back. and they got significantly worse. And I know there was a prominent report a couple weeks ago that how dare you mention that Todd Bowles might be on the hot seat. Well, because all he's been doing is winning a mediocre division for a few years. And this year, when he had a chance to run away with the worst division in the NFL, he lost it 8-9. Baker Mayfield's play fell off a cliff. Like that team looked bad, like bottom 5 bad in the last half of the season. So I don't think it's a personnel thing. I think they got a lot of good players. That roster is pretty good. If I was Bucs ownership, I'd be very, very frustrated with how that season went. And I do think a coaching change is absolutely justifiable in this case.
Let's get to our next group of teams. We've got Dallas, another one on the list of disappointments this season. We've got the Saints at 22, the Bengals at 23, and the Chiefs at 24. We just learned that the Cowboys moved on from defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus. Your initial reaction when you first heard that news?
My initial reaction is Jerry Jones, if he's serious about winning, and I've been ranting about this all morning on social media, if you follow me, if Jerry Jones is actually serious about winning a Super Bowl, and that's his top priority, he gets on the phone with Brian Flores' agent and say, how much is it? Because a top coordinator in the NFL this year was $6 million. He says, you want 15? Here you go. You want 20? I don't care. He's Jerry Jones. There's no salary cap for coaches. I think Brian Flores is a top 5 defensive coordinator. I think most people would agree with me. There's no downside to say Brian Flores is going to be a free agent. I don't know if everybody knows that. Brian Flores' contract is up after this year. So he's free to sign anywhere. And Jerry Jones should just make the Godfather offer. How much is it going to take? And he gives you your ridiculous number and you say, I'll add $1 million onto it. I'm Jerry Jones, right? Like, why wouldn't you do this if you're actually serious about winning a Super Bowl? Now, the reason is because owners like to play nicey-nicey with each other. And there's this unspoken collusion to keep coaching salaries down. Because if you paid coaches what they're worth, look, if Dak Prescott's worth $60 million, Andy Reid's making about 18, I believe. Andy Reid should be making about $60 million. You could argue he should be making more. So it's just they've kept the salaries down for coaches. But here's a rare instance where I think Jerry Jones should just say, Flo, what's it going to take? You got head coaching offers. I don't care. I'll pay you more than a head coaching job would. And that's how the Cowboys should fix this defensive coordinator issue. And they absolutely will not do that because that's never been Jerry Jones' MO.
Let's go to the next segment here. You've got 25 through 28. You got Miami, Cleveland, Washington, Giants. These teams all suck. But the Miami Dolphins down 5 here, finished 7-10. In case you didn't see this, Frank, an interesting note because Tua Tagovailoa was asked how he would feel if he got a fresh start somewhere else. And his quote was, asked for a fresh start. His quote was, that would be dope. I would be good with it. I don't remember the last time I saw a starting quarterback under contract being like, oh, no, a fresh start would be dope. Like, what do you make of this?
And I understand it. I mean, everybody knows what happened when he got benched late in the year. It's over. Like that, it's done. The Miami Dolphins just going to have to suck it up. And you start thinking about, okay, what happens here? Well, I think Tua's going to be, they're going to maybe try to trade him. That's not going to work. So he's just going to be available at some point. And you start thinking about who might he go to? What might happen with Tua? And you think about Arizona's going to need a quarterback. I don't think Kyler's back there. I wondered about Minnesota, actually, because, they could do the Indianapolis thing where they say, yeah, we got J.J. McCarthy, but we're bringing in our version of Daniel Jones, which would be Tua, if Tua doesn't get any offers anywhere else. But I think the one interesting team here is the Steelers. I assume Aaron Rodgers retires. Maybe not. He kind of hinted last week that, I'm going to have offers. I don't know if I'm done yet. So maybe Aaron Rodgers comes back because he did play pretty well this season, given his age. But if he doesn't, the Steelers don't have the type of draft pick where you can take a quarterback. There's not going to be a lot out there. Maybe their next ride on the merry-go-round is Tua Tagovailoa. It would make sense. Tua has led the NFL in passing yards before. He has led the NFL in yards per attempt and all this stuff. He became a different quarterback 2 years ago. I think it was a concussion that he suffered against Buffalo at the start of the 2024 season. He's been a different quarterback since. But if you're looking for a reclamation, if you're looking for a next Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, that type of story, I think the Steelers could do a lot worse than Tua to try him out and see if they can salvage him.
All right, let's move on to the Toilet Bowl, the Dante Moore Bowl, the Fernando Mendoza Bowl. Yeah, unfortunately, Fitz. Unfortunately, we do. We got 3 out of those 4 bottom teams in your rankings, Frank, all have head coaching openings. Which one is the best between the Titans, the Cardinals, and the Raiders? What looks like the most attractive job for a potential head coach?
I think
don't make enemies with Fitz.
No, I already have. He's blocked me. I can't even text this guy anymore. Like, he's just big time to me. No, he hasn't. We text all the time. And I usually try to avoid any Raiders talk because it's never fun. I will say that the Raiders are not the worst opening. I think that's the Cardinals. I don't see any bright side with the Cardinals right now. Like, what is it? Your best players are a tight end and a strong safety, which are low value positions in the NFL. You have no quarterback. You have no history of winning. You're in a division with Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Mike McDonald. Who wants that job? So the Cardinals are not in that conversation. I went back and forth between the Titans and the Raiders. I went with the Raiders over the Titans when I ranked these, just because they do have the number 1 pick and it's kind of a clean slate. The bar is very low, Fitz, with the Raiders. If you win 6 games, you're like, oh, wow, you doubled our win total. So I just wonder, but none of these openings are good. If I'm a coaching candidate and you kind of whiff, I think the Falcons are the best one. We argued about that in Inside Coverage yesterday. Those guys think, Andrew and Charles don't think it is because of the quarterback situation. Giants are a good opening. If you don't get one of those jobs, you're a good coordinator or a good candidate this offseason. You're looking at the other ones saying, oh my goodness, Arizona, Vegas, Tennessee, that all bad owners, all bad history, all bad rosters. It is very desolate out there if you are a top head coaching candidate, if you don't get the Falcons or Giants job.
Frank,
if you like to golf,
delight for us.
Arizona's a great option.
They got a nice golf in Vegas too. Come on, you've been glorious to us give you this last time during the regular season. You're going to join us. I'm giving you 1 minute to just wax poetically about something I know you care a lot about. Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be traded by the Bucks. This is our last chance.
My goodness!
Do you have anything you want to say to everybody that tries?
I'm a Milwaukee-born guy and a big Bucks fan. Went to Game 4 of the 2021 Finals, one of the best days of my life. And I will say this: Giannis is probably going to be traded. Fine, I get that. I have also heard every day for 9 years that Giannis is going to be traded. Everything that happens with the Milwaukee Bucks always goes back to, well, this must mean he's going to the Heat. Why? Like, why have we covered Giannis this way? He is a guy who's been very loyal to a small market. He stayed there. He said, I don't want a super team. I'm winning a title in Milwaukee. Posted 50 in a clinching game. We should be celebrating that instead of every single day being like, well, Giannis is going to the Knicks. The Bucks must accept this terrible package of players for Giannis because they got it. He obviously doesn't want to be in Milwaukee. It's embarrassing how he's been covered throughout his career. So when he gets traded, and he will, I get it. It's business. Don't do any victory laps. You've been predicting this for 9 years and you've been wrong. I'd be embarrassed by that. Embarrassed. So Giannis, thank you for your loyalty to Milwaukee. When you go, salute. The statue will be waiting for you when you come back. But yes, he will be traded and no victory laps. None. Zero.
I see. That's why we had to let you do that. You're the best, my friend. Be sure to read the power rankings, and I think you're going to be. We'll do more with you. It's just you've been with us every week this season. We appreciate all the joy you brought to our regular season. Happy New Year, my friend.
Love it. Love you guys. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Frank. Appreciate you,
from Frank, as always. At the top of the list, the Seattle Seahawks. At the bottom of the list, shockingly, the Raiders. I don't know what he has against my favorite team. The top riser, Atlanta.
It's a Pete Carroll sandwich.
And the top
they're at 1-32.
Yeah, it is. Oh, my God, you're right. It's the best and the worst. So it's the best of times and the worst of the times. Top faller, Miami down 5. So, Caroline, certainly plenty will change during the course of the playoffs, but interesting to see how these played out.
Yeah, fascinating also to see the Atlanta Falcons as the top riser, the one team that totally and completely cleaned house, moving on from both their head coach and their general manager. But more exciting times ahead for both the Falcons and the Dolphins, and hopefully, Fitzy, for your sake, your Raiders.
Well, the one thing we know is that we're getting into draft prep season, which I love covering. I've covered the draft every year in my career.
It's cap space season.
Look, look, one of two things is going to happen. I'm going to be hosting a draft show or I'm going to be tanked in Pittsburgh. Either way, it's a win for me for the NFL draft. Come back tomorrow for more Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching.